Chosen one, do you remember that night? That 3 a.m. when the house was so quiet you could hear your own heart breaking? When you were on your knees in that bathroom, tears soaking the tile, whispering prayers you thought were too broken for heaven to hear? When you made a choice nobody saw, a choice that cost you everything but saved your soul? What if I told you that moment, that secret sacrifice, that silent surrender, when you thought you were utterly alone, heaven hasn't stopped replaying it? Listen to me carefully. There was a day in your life, maybe 40 years ago, maybe last Tuesday, when you did something that made the Almighty smile. Not applaud, not approve from a distance, smile. The kind of smile a father gives when his child finally understands what love actually costs. And you have no idea how much it meant. You thought nobody saw you that night in the hospital chapel. You thought nobody noticed when you forgave the person who didn't deserve it. You thought nobody cared when you chose obedience over comfort, faith over logic, surrender over survival. But heaven saw, and heaven remembered. This message is about that one act that changed everything in the unseen realm. By the time we're done here tonight, you're going to understand 3 things that will shatter your heart wide open. What God actually did with that moment you thought was forgotten, why your later years aren't a downgrade but a divine promotion, and how your life looks from heaven's perspective, not from the mirror's lie. Before we go deeper, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let the Spirit move your heart. But right now, if something in your chest is already stirring, if you can feel that old memory rising like smoke, I need you to do something. Type just 3 words in the comments: God saw me. Let heaven and hell see you're still here, still standing, still believing. And please, don't click away. The part where I tell you what God did with that moment, what He's been doing with it every single day since that's coming, I don't want you to miss it. You know how you keep that one photograph in your wallet, faded, creased, but you won't throw it away? Heaven has something like that. But it's not a photo, beloved. It's a memory of your faith. And it's more precious than you ever imagined. Let me ask you something that might cut deeper than you're ready for. When was the last time someone asked how you're doing and actually waited for the real answer? When was the last time your phone rang and it wasn't a telemarketer or a doctor's office? When was the last time you felt like your presence in a room actually mattered to anyone? You see, I know your story. Not because I'm psychic, but because I've sat with enough faithful saints to recognize the pattern. You raised children who now live 3 time zones away and can't find 15 minutes for a phone call. You stayed in a marriage that nearly crushed your spirit, for better or worse turned into for worse and worse, but you kept your vows because you feared God more than you feared loneliness. You gave decades to a church that knew your name when they needed volunteers, but somehow forgot it when you were lying in that hospital bed for 3 weeks. And now the house echoes. The only voice you hear most days is the weatherman on the TV you leave on, just so the silence doesn't swallow you whole. You sit in that same recliner every evening, the one with the worn armrest where your hand has rested through 1,000 whispered prayers, and you talk to God like He's the only one left who might actually be listening. And some nights, you're not even sure about Him anymore. The kitchen table that once held laughter and birthday cakes now holds your pill organizer. 7 little compartments labeled with the days of the week, your most faithful companions. The chair across from you stays empty. No grandkids doing homework there. No spouse reading the paper. Just empty space mocking the life you thought you'd have by now. You go to the grocery store and the cashier doesn't make eye contact. You go to church and sit in the same pew you've occupied for 30 years, and the young families rush past you like you're part of the furniture. You've become invisible. A relic. Someone people smile at politely but never actually see. And here's the truth. You won't say out loud but scream in your spirit every single day. You're tired. Bone tired. Soul tired. You're tired of being strong when your body is breaking down. You're tired of being called a prayer warrior when you feel more like a prisoner of war. You're tired of encouraging others when nobody's left to encourage you. You just want to know if any of it counted. Did those decades of faithful service matter? Did those prayers you prayed at 2 a.m. over your wayward children change anything? Did those sacrifices you made, the dreams you buried, the opportunities you surrendered, the pain you endured in silence, did God even notice? You wonder if maybe you did it all wrong. Maybe you should have been more selfish. Maybe you should have put yourself first instead of last. Maybe faithfulness is just another word for being used up and thrown away. Those thoughts feel like betrayal even as you think them. But they won't stop coming, will they? Here's what I need you to hear right now. And I need you to let this sink past your exhaustion into that place where truth still lives. Those questions you're asking, that anger bubbling underneath your faithfulness, that disappointment you can barely admit to yourself, those are not the marks of a weak believer. Those are the questions of someone who has loved God long enough to be honest with Him. You know who else felt invisible? Hagar, weeping in the wilderness, convinced she'd been discarded and forgotten. But Genesis 16:13 tells us she gave God a name that day, El Roi, the God who sees. She didn't name Him that because she felt seen. She named Him that because she discovered He'd been watching all along. You know who else felt used up and forgotten? Anna the prophetess, widowed after just 7 years of marriage, spending the next 77 years in the temple. 84 years old, watching younger women come and go, probably wondering if her life had amounted to anything. But Luke 2:38 says that when baby Jesus was brought to the temple, she was there. She was ready. She was the one who recognized Him. All those invisible years weren't wasted. They were preparation. Your questions aren't pushing you away from God. They're pulling you toward the most honest conversation you've ever had with Him. Because here's what nobody told you about the life of faith. The moments you feel most invisible on earth are often the moments you are most visible in heaven. That recliner where you pray, heaven sees it as a throne room. Those tears you cry when nobody's watching, they're not falling into empty space. Psalm 56:8 says God keeps them in a bottle. Every single one, catalogued, treasured, remembered. The world has convinced you that your best years are behind you, that you're winding down, that you've been put on the shelf. But what if everything you've been through wasn't the end of your story? What if it was all preparation for what God is about to do through you now? I'm about to show you, straight from Scripture, what God does with those invisible moments. What He's been doing with every prayer you thought went unanswered, every sacrifice you thought went unnoticed, every tear you thought fell into the void. Because, beloved, you haven't been forgotten, you've been positioned, and that one act, that moment when you thought nobody was watching, heaven hasn't stopped replaying it. You want to know what breaks my heart? It's watching people in their 70s and 80s convince themselves that their life didn't matter because the world stopped applauding. Let me tell you something that's going to shatter that lie right now. While you've been measuring your worth by who remembers your name, heaven has been keeping a different kind of record. And what's written there would bring you to your knees if you could see it. Malachi 3:16 says something that should stop you in your tracks. Then those who feared the Lord talked with each other, and the Lord listened and heard. A scroll of remembrance was written in His presence concerning those who feared the Lord and honored His name. A scroll, not a footnote, not a passing thought. A scroll of remembrance written in God's presence. Your name isn't scribbled on a sticky note that gets lost in heaven's filing cabinet. It's inscribed in a permanent record that the Almighty Himself reviews. But here's what's going to wreck you. It's not your successes He's recording, it's your sacrifices. Not the moments when you had strength, the moments when you had nothing left but still chose faith. You think your life is thinning out. You think because your body is slowing down that your story is ending. Let me tell you what heaven sees. Heaven has a scrapbook of your faith, And it's not full of your victories when everything was going right. It's full of the Tuesday morning when you could barely get out of bed but you still whispered, "Thank you." It's full of the night you forgave the person who destroyed you. It's full of the check you wrote to the church when your bank account was screaming at you to stop. Think about the widow's mite. Luke 21. Jesus is sitting in the temple watching people throw money into the offering. The rich are making a show of it, tossing in their excess, their leftovers, their pocket change that won't be missed. And then this woman, old, poor, invisible to everyone, comes forward and drops in 2 small copper coins, worth less than a penny. And Jesus stops everything. He calls his disciples over, not for the big donors, not for the celebrities, for the woman everyone ignored. "Truly I tell you," he says, "this poor widow has put in more than all the others." Why? Because she gave everything she had. While others gave from their abundance, she gave from her poverty. While others gave what was comfortable, she gave what was costly. That's you. That's your story. You're the widow everyone walks past. You're the sacrifice nobody sees. You're the offering the world dismisses. But Jesus, he stops for you. He calls heaven's attention to you. He makes sure your act is recorded for eternity. I'm talking to the grandmother who kept tithing on that social security check even when the math didn't make sense. I'm talking to the grandfather who kept showing up to pray at that empty church when everyone else quit. I'm talking to every senior saint who chose obedience when comfort was begging you to compromise. You think God didn't notice? You think heaven wasn't watching when you made that choice? Matthew 6-4 destroys that lie. Jesus says, "Your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." Not might reward, will reward. Present tense, active, happening right now. Every act you thought was invisible was actually being witnessed by the only audience that matters. Every sacrifice you made in secret was being recorded in heaven's archives. Every moment you chose God when nobody else was watching that moment was sealed in eternity. But here's where it gets even deeper. Psalm 56-8 says something so tender it should make you weep. "You have kept count of my tossings, put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your book? Your tears, every single one. The tears you cried in that dark bedroom when the loneliness felt like it would crush you. The tears you shed at that graveside when you buried the love of your life. The tears that fell on your kitchen table at 2 a.m. when the bills were piled higher than your faith could see over. God didn't just know about those tears. He collected them. He put them in a bottle. He recorded them in his book. Not one tear wasted, not one act ignored, not one quiet "I still trust you" forgotten. Do you understand what this means? While the world has been treating you like you're invisible, heaven has been treating every tear like liquid gold. While society has been putting you on the shelf, God has been putting your faithfulness on display in the throne room. You are not forgotten. You are recorded. You are not overlooked. You are remarked upon. You are not invisible. You are in the scroll. But here's what you need to hear right now. There was one specific moment, one particular act that made heaven pause. One night, one decision, one sacrifice that caused the angels to lean in and God himself to smile. And in just a few minutes, I'm going to walk you through a scene that's going to look a lot like your life. A scene from a kitchen, a hospital room, a quiet moment when you thought you were completely alone, and you're going to see exactly what God wrote down that night. Because, beloved, what you think was your weakest moment was actually your finest hour. And heaven hasn't stopped talking about it. It's 2:17 a.m. The house is dark except for that little nightlight in the hallway, the one you bought after your spouse passed because you couldn't stand the complete darkness anymore. The clock on the microwave glows green, and in the silence of your home, you can hear it humming. That low electrical buzz that's always been there, but somehow at 2 a.m. it sounds like it's screaming. Your knees hurt. Your back is on fire. The bottle of pills sits on the counter next to the framed wedding photo, the one from 1967, when everything was ahead of you and nothing had been taken yet. There's still a hospital bracelet on the edge of the sink. You meant to throw it away 3 weeks ago, but you can't, because throwing it away feels like erasing them. You shuffle to the kitchen. Not because you're hungry, not because you need water, but because lying in that bed, staring at that ceiling, listening to the questions in your head, it's unbearable. God, where were you when the doctor said there's nothing more we can do? Why did you take them so early? They were good. They were faithful. I needed them. Have I wasted my life? 73 years on this earth. And what do I have to show for it? The questions come like waves now. Relentless. Crushing. And you stand there in your kitchen, the one where you've cooked 10,000 meals, celebrated birthdays, argued over bills, prayed over sick children. The linoleum is cracked. The cabinet door still doesn't close right. This kitchen has seen your entire life. And tonight, it's about to witness something that will echo in eternity. Because right there, in that moment when bitterness would make perfect sense, when cursing God would be understandable, when closing your heart would be justified, you don't. Instead, you put your wrinkled hands on that countertop. The same hands that held babies, signed mortgage papers, gripped steering wheels through blizzards, and folded in prayer more times than you can count. You place those tired, spotted, shaking hands flat on that cold formica surface. And you whisper, barely audible, your voice cracking, I still trust you. 4 words. That's all. 4 words that probably didn't even make it past your own ears. Your voice so broken, so tired, so small in that dark kitchen. You lift those hands not high, not in some grand gesture of worship, just a few inches off the counter, just enough. I don't understand you, Lord. I don't understand any of this. But I'm not leaving you. Right there. That moment. That tiny, invisible, secret surrender that cost you everything and looked like nothing. Heaven stood up. Listen to me carefully, beloved. While you thought you were alone in that tiny kitchen at 2:17 inches the morning, while you thought your whispered prayer was too broken to matter, while you thought nobody saw your last act of faith, heaven was watching with held breath. Angels turned from their posts. The Son of God pointed to you and said to the Father, look, right there. After everything we've allowed, after every unanswered question, after all the taking and the silence, they're still choosing us. And the Father smiled. Not a distant nod of approval, not a casual acknowledgement. The Creator of the universe, the Ancient of Days, the one who spoke galaxies into existence, he smiled. The kind of smile a father gives when his child finally understands what love actually costs. When loyalty isn't based on comfort, when trust doesn't require understanding. James 1:12 says, blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. But do you understand what that means? It means heaven doesn't just see your Sunday morning praise. Heaven is watching your Tuesday night surrender, your 2 a.m. choice, your kitchen floor faithfulness. Your one act of broken trust in that dark kitchen meant more to God than 10,000 prayers prayed in perfect circumstances. Because anyone can praise when life is good. Anyone can worship when prayers are answered. Anyone can trust when they understand the plan. But you trusted when it made no sense. You surrendered when you had every right to walk away. You whispered, I still trust you, when your heart was screaming, why did you abandon me? For some of you, right now, I just described a night only you and God know about. For others, your one act wasn't in a kitchen, it was in a hospital room at 4 a.m., standing over a bed saying goodbye. It was at a graveside in the rain, choosing to believe in resurrection when all you could see was dirt. It was in a courtroom, forgiving when justice failed. It was in a lonely apartment, deciding to keep breathing when living felt impossible. But here's what you didn't know. Here's what the enemy has hidden from you all these years. That moment didn't just make God smile. That moment changed something in the heavenly realm. Your whispered, I still trust you, became a weapon. Your kitchen floor surrender became your greatest sermon. Your 2 a.m. Faithfulness became the answer to someone else's prayer for proof that God is real. If you can remember your version of that night, if you know exactly what I'm talking about, I need you to do something right now. Whisper it out loud where you're sitting. You saw me, God. Say it. Let your voice break if it needs to. Let the tears come if they want to. Because He did see you. He has never stopped seeing you. And if you can, write it in the comments. He saw me in, and put the year, put the place. Let this community of chosen ones surround that memory with witness. You're not alone in your 2 a.m. faithfulness. But what you're about to discover next will break your heart wide open, because what God did with that moment, what He's been doing with it every single day since, that's the part that changes everything. Listen to me, chosen one. I need to tell you something that's going to shatter a lie you've been carrying like a stone in your chest. You've started believing your presence is a burden, haven't you? On your family who's tired of driving you to appointments, on the healthcare system that sees you as a number, on your children who sigh when you call, on God Himself, who you think is just waiting for you to finally go home so He can stop dealing with your failing body and your repetitive prayers. That thought you had last Tuesday, the one where you whispered, maybe they'd be better off without me, I heard it. Heaven heard it, and I'm here to tell you it's a lie, straight from the pit of hell. Heaven does not talk about you like a burden. Heaven talks about you like a reference. You want to know what I mean by that? Let me paint you a picture that's going to wreck you in the best way possible. Right now, somewhere in Kansas, there's a 28-year-old woman who just got diagnosed with the same cancer that tried to take you out in 2015. She's sitting in her car in the hospital parking lot, hands shaking, wondering if God is real or if faith is just something people say when they're scared. And I believe no. I know that God is pointing at you right now. Not pointing you out. Pointing to you. Like a coach showing game film. Watch what she did in 2020. Watch what he did after that diagnosis. Watch how they worshipped when their spouse died. Watch how they chose me when choosing me made no earthly sense. You don't even realize you're someone else's miracle in training. Every morning you wake up and choose to pray instead of complain. You're building a case study in heaven's archives. Every time you forgive when bitterness would be easier, you're creating a reference point for someone who's about to face the same test. Every moment you trust God with your medication, your money, your loneliness. You're becoming the proof that faith works in real life, not just in sermons. The Apostle Paul knew this. That's why he wrote in 2 Corinthians 1-4, "Who comforteth us in all our tribulation, that we may be able to comfort them which are in any trouble." You think your suffering was random? It was training. You think your endurance was just stubbornness? It was strategy. God has been building you into a living testimony that the next generation desperately needs to see. But here's where it gets supernatural. Here's where heaven's mathematics breaks every calculator on Wall Street. Your faith is like money put away decades ago with compound interest. 1 act plus time equals something massive. Think about it. When you put $100 in the bank 50 years ago, it didn't just sit there. It grew. It multiplied. It compounded year after year until that small deposit became something significant. Your faith works the same way in the spiritual realm, except the returns are infinite. That one whispered, "I trust you," in 1987, when the factory closed and you didn't know how you'd feed your kids. It didn't evaporate. It's been growing, compounding, building spiritual equity in heaven's ledger. Every year you stayed with God. Even when your body started failing, that interest kept accumulating. And now, at 75, at 82, at 90 years old, you're sitting on a spiritual fortune you can't even see yet. Every act of faithfulness you've ever done is still working, still multiplying, still generating returns in realms you won't understand until you get home. You are tougher than you think. You've buried people and still worshipped. You've lost everything and still tithed. You've been betrayed and still believed. That's not weakness, beloved. That's compound spiritual interest that makes hell nervous. This one act made God smile. But it didn't stop there. It started a chain reaction. That moment in the kitchen when you chose forgiveness, it's still rippling. That night you stayed on your knees until you heard God's voice, still echoing. That decision to trust Him with your retirement when the numbers didn't make sense, still multiplying in ways you'll only understand in eternity. But let me tell you something that's going to blow your mind wide open. What that smile set in motion isn't just about you. It's about your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren who aren't even born yet. Exodus 20:6 promises that God shows mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thousands, not just you, not just your kids, thousands of generations. Your one act of obedience in 1994 is creating blessing for descendants you'll never meet on this side of heaven. You think you're just surviving these final years? You're securing bloodline blessings for the next 100 years. You think you're just an old person taking up space. You're a spiritual trust fund that your great-grandchildren will withdraw from when they face their own impossible moments. God is literally using your life as Exhibit A in heaven's courtroom. When the accuser says humans can't be trusted, God pulls up your file. When demons argue that old age equals uselessness, the Almighty replays that morning you chose joy over despair at 87 years old. You are not a burden. You are evidence that God keeps His promises. If you've ever felt like you're taking up space, if you've ever wondered if your family would be better off without you, if you've ever believed the lie that your best days are behind you, I need you to do something right now. I need you to type these words in the comments, even if your hands shake while you do it. I am not a burden. I am a reference point. Let heaven hear you agree with what God says about you. Let hell know you're not falling for their lies anymore. Because what I'm about to tell you next is going to explain exactly what heaven has been doing with every tear you've cried, every prayer you've whispered, and every moment you thought nobody was watching. Listen to me very carefully, chosen one. When God smiles at a moment in your life, He doesn't just clap His hands and move on. He sets things in motion, invisible things, eternal things, things that ripple through time like a stone thrown into still water, creating waves you won't see for decades. That one act you think nobody noticed, that night you chose forgiveness when bitterness would have been easier, that morning you tithed your last $20 when fear screamed at you to hold on, that moment you worshipped through tears when your heart was shattered into 1,000 pieces. God didn't just approve, He smiled. And when the Almighty smiles, beloved, heaven mobilizes. You want to know what happened in the unseen realm the moment you made that choice? Angels were dispatched. Demonic assignments were cancelled. Generational curses were broken. Doors that had been welded shut for 3 generations suddenly creaked open. Provision that had been blocked started flowing. Protection that your grandchildren don't even know they need was activated. Your one act didn't just impact your life. It rewrote your family's future. Think about this. Some of you sitting here right now, you're alive because your grandmother's one act of faith kept you covered. That night she prayed instead of cursed. That day she chose worship over worry. That moment she surrendered instead of schemed. You don't remember it. You weren't even born yet. But you're breathing today because she made a choice that shifted something in the spiritual DNA of your entire bloodline. And now, dear one, now you are that covering for your grandchildren. Every secret act of obedience you've offered in the dark, every tear you've cried in your prayer closet, every sacrifice you've made that nobody applauded, every time you chose God's way when the world offered you an easier path, it's all been recorded, stored, accumulated in heaven's vaults like compound interest on an eternal investment. Your children might not understand it yet. Your grandchildren might not even know your name 20 years from now. But they will walk in blessings they didn't earn, escape traps that should have caught them, and experience favor they can't explain. And it will all trace back to that one night when you were on your knees and nobody was watching except the one who matters most. But here's what's going to wreck you. Here's the part that's going to make you weep and shout at the same time. You thought God was late. You thought he forgot. You thought your prayers bounced off the ceiling and fell to the floor unanswered. He wasn't late, beloved. He was storing it. Picture this with me. Imagine a massive dam, concrete and steel, holding back millions of gallons of water. For years, for decades, rain falls, streams flow, rivers converge, and all of it gets collected, contained, stored behind that wall. Day after day, month after month, year after year. Someone driving past might think nothing's happening, just a wall, just water sitting still. But then, one day, the appointed day, the kairos moment, the fullness of time, the gates open, and what's been building for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, comes rushing out with such force that it transforms everything downstream. That's what God has been doing with your tears. That's what he's been doing with your prayers. That's what he's been doing with every secret worship moment, every midnight cry, every sacrificial yes when everything in you wanted to say no. He wasn't ignoring you. He was storing it, building it, compounding it, preparing a flood of blessing so massive that when it finally breaks loose, 3 generations will be swept up in the overflow. But I need you to do something right now. I need you to stop agreeing with the lie that you missed your moment. Stop partnering with the voice that says you're too old, too late, too forgotten. That's not God's voice. That's not truth. That's the enemy trying desperately to convince you to die before your harvest comes. Say it out loud right where you are. I don't care who's in the room with you. Declare it. Lord, I receive what your smile started. Say it again, louder this time. I receive my delayed harvest. Type it in the comments right now. Don't just think it, declare it. I receive my delayed harvest. Let heaven see you're still in agreement. Let hell know you haven't given up. Let the angels assigned to your blessing know it's time to release what's been held in reserve. And here's what I need you to understand as we move forward. This isn't just about what happened back then. This is about what happens from this day forward. You are living proof that one act of faith can change everything. One choice, one moment, one surrender. And if God did it once, if he smiled at something you did in secret and set miracles in motion that you're just now beginning to see, what do you think he can do with the rest of your days? Your smallest act of faith today could be the turning point for your entire family tomorrow. That prayer you're about to whisper could unlock a door for your grandson 20 years from now. That worship you're about to offer could break a chain that's been choking your bloodline for 4 generations. You're not winding down, beloved. You're loading up. Because every day you have breath in your lungs is another opportunity to make God smile. Another chance to set something in motion in the invisible realm. Another moment to store up treasure in heaven that will rain down on your children's children long after you've gone home to glory. So let me ask you this. If one hidden act could do all of that, if one secret choice could shift your entire legacy, what are you going to do with today? Because what I'm about to show you next will prove that your greatest impact isn't in your past. It's in how you live from this moment forward, knowing that heaven is watching, recording, and storing every act of faith for the appointed time of release. So now you know, heaven has been watching, recording, treasuring. Every hidden moment of your faithfulness has been replaying in the throne room while you thought you were invisible down here. But here's the question that's burning in your chest right now. What do I do with this truth? How do I live tomorrow morning knowing that God is still watching, still waiting, still smiling when I choose him in the small things? Let me tell you something that's going to change how you see the rest of your days on this earth. You think your impact is shrinking because your body is slowing down. You think your relevance is fading because the world worships youth. You think your best acts of faith are in the rearview mirror. That's the enemy's whisper, and it's a damned lie. Listen to me carefully. Psalm 92:14 declares something that should set your spirit on fire. They will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green. Still bear fruit. Present tense. Active. Alive. Not they used to bear fruit. Not they remember when they bore fruit. They will still bear fruit. That means tomorrow morning, when you wake up, when your knees ache and your coffee tastes like the only pleasure left, you still have the power to make heaven smile. You still carry the authority to shift the spiritual atmosphere. You still hold keys that unlock chains you can't even see. Let's talk about what this looks like in real life. In your body, in your routine, in the small spaces between breakfast and bedtime where you think nothing eternal is happening. What if I told you that the whispered prayer you speak over your grandchildren's names, the ones who don't call anymore, the ones who've walked away from God, the ones chasing the world, what if those whispers are the most powerful warfare happening on planet Earth right now? You think you're just an old person muttering in an empty kitchen. But heaven hears intercession, hell hears authority, and the angels lean in when you speak their names covered in Jesus' blood. James 5:16 doesn't have an age limit. The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. Not was powerful, is powerful, right now. This morning, when you can barely get out of bed but you can still get on your knees, here's your first act for tomorrow. Before your feet hit the floor, whisper the names of 3 people who need God's intervention. Your daughter struggling in her marriage, your grandson drowning in addiction, that neighbor who looks more lost every time you see them. Speak their names, cover them, declare life over death. You may feel weak, but your prayers are weapons of mass destruction against the kingdom of darkness. And when you leave that house, when you go to the doctor's office, the grocery store, the pharmacy where you pick up medications that remind you how fragile this body has become, I want you to do something radical. Bless the people serving you. Not just thank you, I mean speak blessing. God bless you today to the cashier who looks exhausted. May the Lord's favor be on you to the nurse who's checking your blood pressure. These aren't empty religious phrases, beloved. These are prophetic declarations releasing heaven's economy into their lives. You're not just being polite, you're being priestly. Numbers 6:24-6 gives you the script. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. You have permission to speak that over strangers. You have authority to release blessing over people who have no idea they just encountered a carrier of God's presence. But here's where it gets personal. Here's where the Holy Spirit wants to cut deep. How many of you are still carrying a grudge from 15, 20, 30 years ago? Someone who hurt you, someone who betrayed you, someone who walked away and never apologized. You've held on to that bitterness so long it feels like part of your DNA now. God is asking you to let it go, not because they deserve it, because you deserve freedom. Ephesians 4:32 isn't a suggestion, it's a prescription for your healing. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you. Every day you hold that grudge, you're drinking poison hoping they'll die, but they're living their life while you're rotting from the inside out. Here's your second act. Before this day ends, get alone with God and release that person's name. Out loud. I forgive, name. I release them from the debt they owe me. I bless them in Jesus' name. You don't have to feel it. You don't have to want to. You just have to obey. And watch what God does with your obedience. Now, let me tell you something about your voice. That voice that cracks when you try to sing, that voice that trembles when you pray, that voice the world says doesn't matter anymore. Put on a worship song. It doesn't matter if you don't understand Spotify or streaming or whatever the young people use. Turn on the radio to a Christian station, play that old hymn CD you've had for 20 years, and sing. Let that cracked, broken, beautiful voice rise to heaven like incense. Psalm 71-17:1-8 is your anthem. Since my youth, God, you have taught me, and to this day I declare your marvelous deeds. Even when I am old and grey, do not forsake me, my God, till I declare your power to the next generation, your mighty acts to all who are to come. Even when I am old and grey, especially when you are old and grey. You may feel like your hands are weak, but in the spirit realm, those hands still hold a key. Every time you choose faith over fear, prayer over worry, blessing over bitterness, you're turning that key for someone else. You're unlocking prison doors for people you'll never meet. You're opening windows in heaven for breakthrough you won't see until eternity. Here's the truth they don't want you to know. You are not done. You are in the chapter where the author shows why your whole story mattered. Every page of pain, every chapter of loss, every plot twist that made you want to throw the book away. It's all converging now into the climax, where God reveals that he was writing a masterpiece the whole time. You don't realize how much that one act meant, and how much it still means. Before this day ends, I need you to do one small act on purpose. Not for show, not for credit, for him. Write a short prayer in a notebook with your family's names. Forgive someone in prayer who doesn't even know they need your forgiveness. Send a blessing message, just one text, one call, one handwritten note, to someone younger who needs to hear that they matter. You may not like smartphones, but you can still send one text that shifts a life. You may not have energy for long conversations, but you can still speak one sentence that breaks a curse. And when you do it, whisper this: Lord, I did this for you. Smile again, because, beloved, heaven is still watching, still recording, still treasuring every act of faith you think is too small to matter. But nothing is small when it's done for an audience of one. So let me ask you this. If God is still watching, if your story isn't over, if tomorrow morning holds another chance to make heaven smile, what will you choose? Listen to me, beloved. Some of you fought wars in kitchens and bedrooms that no one will ever write about. Wars where the bullets were words, wars where the wounds were invisible, wars where you bled in silence because admitting you were dying would have destroyed everyone who depended on you staying strong. You remember, don't you, that bathroom floor at 2 a.m. when you were 23, 37, 52, 71, when the weight was so heavy you couldn't breathe, when the voices in your head screamed that ending it all would be easier than enduring one more day, but you didn't. You chose breath, you chose mourning, you chose God when choosing God felt like choosing torture. Nobody gave you a medal for that. Nobody threw you a parade. Nobody even knew, but heaven knew. You lived with a spouse whose words cut deeper than any knife. Year after year, you absorbed rage that would have turned weaker souls into monsters. But you made a choice, a wholly impossible choice. You chose not to become what hurt you. You chose softness when hardness would have been justified. You chose to pray for the person who was killing you slowly. That wasn't weakness, dear one. That was warfare. And you won. Some of you grew up in neighborhoods where violence was the language everyone spoke, where survival meant building walls so thick nothing could get in, not love, not hope, not God. But somehow, miraculously, you kept a soft heart. You refused to let your zip code become your destiny. You refused to let your environment poison your spirit. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." You guarded it, not with bitterness, not with walls, but with faith that there was something better than what you could see. And the loneliness, oh God, the crushing loneliness. Sitting in church pews surrounded by people, smiling that practiced smile, shaking hands, saying I'm blessed when inside you were screaming, depression wrapping around your throat like hands, suicidal thoughts, whispering seductive promises of peace. But you kept showing up, Sunday after Sunday, year after year, pretending you were fine because everyone needed you to be fine. Nobody knew you were dying inside. But you are more decorated than you feel. In the military, they give a Purple Heart for being wounded in battle. It's not for winning, it's not for heroics, it's simply for being wounded while serving. It says, you bled for this country, and we honor that blood. Chosen one, in heaven, some of you are wearing medals you don't even know about. Spiritual Purple Hearts for battles fought in secret, for wounds received while serving the kingdom when no one was watching, for bleeding in darkness and still choosing light. That night you whispered, I trust you, when trusting him felt like the stupidest thing you could do, when every circumstance screamed that God had abandoned you, when faith felt like swallowing glass that wasn't a small moment. That was a soldier dropping their weapon and surrendering to God instead of to darkness. That was you choosing heaven's way when hell's way made more sense. And God smiled, not because your pain pleased him, but because your faith in the furnace proved something to every demon in hell. They could wound you, but they couldn't turn you. Picture this with me. Close your eyes if you're somewhere safe. Imagine a great hall in heaven where stories are told. You think they start with famous pastors, don't you? Men and women who preached to millions, built empires, wrote books that changed nations. But God begins differently. He points to you. Yes, you. Sitting there right now, thinking you're nobody special. And he says to the angels, to the elders, to every saint who's gone before, "This is my son, this is my daughter." Look what they survived. Look at the hell they walked through. Look at the abuse they endured. Look at the racism that tried to crush them. Look at the depression that tried to drown them. And they still believed. They still trusted me. They still chose love. And heaven erupts. Not polite applause, eruption, because they understand what you survived. They saw the battles, they counted the wounds, and they've been waiting for the moment when you finally see yourself through heaven's eyes. You are not damaged goods. You are decorated warriors. If you fought battles no one knows about, I want you to whisper something right now, just between you and God. Say, "God, thank you for knowing," that's all, just those 5 words. Because he did know. He saw every tear. He counted every sleepless night. He caught every moment you almost gave up but didn't. And if you can, type just 4 words in the comments. He knew the battle. You don't have to say what it was. You don't have to explain. Just declare that you fought, and he knew. Because what I'm about to tell you next will explain why those battles weren't wasted. Why every wound, every scar, every night of pain was actually preparing you for the one act that would make all of heaven hold its breath. Listen to me, beloved. I need you to close your eyes for just a moment and picture something with me. You're walking down a hallway in heaven, not floating, walking. Because this isn't some ethereal dream, this is real. The floor beneath your feet feels solid, ancient, like it's been waiting for you since before time began. And beside you, walking at your pace, matching your slower steps, is Jesus himself. He's quiet, thoughtful, like he's been waiting to show you something for a very long time. Then he stops in front of a door. Your name is carved into the wood, not painted, carved deep enough that even eternity couldn't erase it. He puts his hand on the handle, looks at you with eyes that have seen every second of your life, and says 5 words that split your heart wide open. This room, this one's yours. The door swings open, and what you see takes your breath away. Shelves, hundreds of them, floor to ceiling, each one lined with jars, scrolls, bottles filled with something that looks like liquid light, and every single one has a label, a date, a season, a moment you recognize the second you read it. October 1987. Almost stopped praying for your son. January 2003. Almost walked out that door and never came back. March 2015. Doctor's report that almost broke you. Sunday morning, 2019. Almost skipped church for the last time. Jesus walks slowly through the room, running his fingers along the shelves like a curator in a sacred museum. And then he speaks, his voice so tender it nearly destroys you. Do you know what these are? You shake your head, tears already streaming. These are your almosts. Every moment you almost gave up but didn't. Every prayer you almost stopped praying but whispered one more time. Every faith step you almost refused to take but took it anyway. Every single time hell screamed quit and you whispered back not yet. He picks up one jar, holds it to the light. Inside, you can see it that night in the kitchen at 2 a.m., sitting in the dark with divorce papers on the table and a pen in your hand. You remember. God, do you remember? Your hands were shaking. Your heart was shattered. Every logical bone in your body said, sign them and end this nightmare. But you didn't. You put the pen down. You fell to your knees instead, and you prayed the most broken prayer that ever left your lips. God, I can't do this. But if you want me to stay, you're going to have to do it through me. Jesus smiles as he holds that jar. Do you know what happened when you prayed that prayer? You can't speak. Hell panicked. Because they had bet everything on you quitting. They had invested 40 years of attacks into breaking you at that exact moment, and you chose me instead of relief. You chose obedience instead of escape. You chose faith when your feelings screamed betrayal. He sets the jar back on the shelf with reverence, like it's the most precious thing in all of heaven. Your almosts amplify your yes. Let that sink in, chosen one. Every single time you almost walked away but didn't, every time you almost stopped believing but chose faith, one more sunrise. It didn't just matter, it multiplied. Each almost made the moments you stayed even more powerful. Each near break became a breakthrough in the spiritual realm you couldn't see. You thought those were your weakest moments. God calls them your strongest. You thought that was you barely hanging on. You thought that was you failing. The Almighty says that was you passing the test that most people never even take. Here's the truth they don't tell you in Sunday school. You don't just have one act that made God smile. You have a room full of almosts that made heaven gasp and hell panic. Every time you got back up after saying, I can't do this anymore. Every time you forgave when bitterness would have been easier. Every time you chose to believe when doubt was screaming in both ears. Every time you stayed when leaving would have made perfect sense to everyone who knew your story. Those weren't accidents, those weren't coincidences, those were cosmic battles fought in your kitchen, your bedroom, your car, your hospital room. And you won. Over and over and over again. You just didn't know you were winning. Hell bet on you quitting. Heaven banked on you staying, and beloved, heaven was right. Do you understand what this means for you right now? In your 70s, your 80s, your 90s, all those years you thought you were barely surviving, you were actually thriving in ways that only eternity will fully reveal. All those moments you felt weak, you were demonstrating strength that made angels weep and demons flee. Your life isn't a story of almost failed. Your life is a testimony of never quit. So right now, wherever you are, I want you to say something out loud. Say it with me. Lord, thank you for every time you held me when I almost let go. Thank you for the strength I didn't know I had. Thank you for counting my almosts as victories. And if you're hearing this and something in your spirit just broke open, if you're realizing for the first time that your weakest moments were actually your strongest type, these 3 words in the comments. I didn't quit. Let heaven see it. Let hell read it. Let other chosen ones know they're not alone. Because, beloved, there's one more thing Jesus wants to show you in that room. One more shelf you haven't seen yet. And what's written on it is going to change everything you thought you knew about why you're still here. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Your body. The aches that wake you at 2 a.m., the cane leaning against your bedroom wall, the pills lined up by the sink like soldiers you never wanted to command, the way you have to hold the railing now when you climb stairs, the tremor in your hands that wasn't there 5 years ago. You feel like your body has become a prison, don't you? You hate asking for help. You hate moving slow while the world rushes past. You hate that the mirror shows you someone you barely recognize, someone diminished, someone fading, someone the world has written off as irrelevant. But what if I told you that everything you hate about your weakness is exactly what heaven has been waiting for? Listen to me carefully, beloved. When a lamp is cracked, more light leaks out. Your body may be fractured, may be failing by the world's standards, but the light inside you has never burned brighter. Your weakness is not a failure. Your weakness is a window. The Apostle Paul knew this mystery when he wrote in 2 Corinthians 4-7, "We have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us." Jars of clay, fragile vessels, bodies that break and bruise and bend under the weight of decades. But here's what will shatter everything you thought you knew about your worth. The point was never the jar. The treasure was always Him. God didn't choose you because your body was going to last forever. He chose you because your spirit would learn to shine brightest when your flesh was at its weakest. Every crack in your vessel is just another place where His glory can pour out into a dark world that desperately needs to see what faithfulness looks like when it costs something. You know what made God smile that night you're trying to forget? That night when you were at your lowest, your weakest, your most broken. It wasn't that you were strong. It wasn't that you had it all together. It wasn't that you impressed heaven with your willpower or your endurance. It was that in your absolute weakness, you still leaned on Him. Your one act wasn't, "Look how strong I am." Your one act was, "Look how much I lean." And that surrender, that beautiful, broken surrender, that's what made the Almighty smile. Think about it. The world celebrates strength, independence, self-sufficiency. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Never let them see you sweat. Never show weakness. But God celebrates dependence. He honors the ones who know they can't make it on their own. This is why your body had to break, chosen one, not as punishment, as preparation, because only someone who knows what it means to be utterly helpless can truly understand what it means to be utterly held. Moses had a speech impediment. Paul had a thorn in his flesh that God refused to remove. Jacob walked with a limp for the rest of his life after wrestling with the angel. These weren't disqualifications from their calling. These were the very things that made them qualified to carry it. Your arthritic hands that can barely hold a pen anymore? Those hands fold in prayer with an authority that shakes principalities. Your legs that won't carry you like they used to? They've learned to kneel in worship with a humility that moves heaven. Your mind that forgets names but remembers every promise God ever whispered. That's not decline. That's refinement. The enemy wants you to believe that your physical weakness makes you spiritually worthless. He wants you to think that because you can't do what you used to do, God can't use you anymore. He wants you ashamed of your body, embarrassed by your limitations, convinced that you're a burden instead of a blessing. But I'm here to tell you that's a lie straight from the pit of hell. Your weakness is still worship. Every time you struggle to get out of bed but do it anyway, that's worship. Every time you fight through pain to show up for your family, that's worship. Every time you choose gratitude over complaint when your body screams at you, that's worship. And God sees it. God counts it. God treasures it. Right now, I want you to do something that might feel strange. Put your hand on the part of your body that hurts the most. That knee, that hip, that chest where the anxiety sits like a stone. And I want you to whisper these words. Even here, you are with me. Say it until you believe it. Because it's true. If this is hitting your heart right now, if you're feeling seen in your weakness for the first time in years, type these 5 words in the comments. My weakness is still worship. Let heaven record your declaration. Your body may be cracked, but the treasure inside you is eternal. And the world needs to see what happens when someone refuses to let physical limitation become spiritual resignation. But here's what you need to understand about why that one act you're ashamed of is actually the one act heaven can't stop celebrating. Listen to me, chosen one. I need to tell you something that's going to cut deep, but it might be the most important truth you hear all year. You can quote every verse in the Bible about God's forgiveness. You can recite Romans 8:1 inch your sleep. There is therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. You know it by heart. You've underlined it in 3 different Bibles. You've shared it with broken people at church who needed to hear it. But you still punish yourself in your thoughts, don't you? Every single day, you replay what you didn't do for your kids when they were young. You replay that time you lost your temper and said words you can never take back. You replay the years you wandered far from God, chasing things that left you empty. You replay the marriage that fell apart, the business that failed, the parent you couldn't save, the addiction that stole a decade. And in your mind, you've built a courtroom. Think about this for a moment. God Almighty, the judge of all the earth, He stepped down from that bench. He took off his robes. He walked across that courtroom floor, pushed open the gate, and wrapped his arms around you. 1 John 1-9 tells us plainly, "If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness." God forgave you. God cleansed you. God closed the case. But you climbed up into that judge's seat he just vacated. You put on those robes, you picked up that gavel, and every morning when you wake up, you reopen a case that heaven stamped paid in full. You are not the judge of a case God already closed. Do you hear me? You have no authority to condemn what Christ has justified. You have no right to punish what the cross has pardoned. You have no business rehearsing guilt that the blood of Jesus has already washed away. But I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking, "But you don't know what I did. You don't know how bad it was. You don't know how many people I hurt." You're right. I don't know, but God does. And he still smiled at that one act of faith you offered him in your brokenness. He still counted it. He still treasured it. He still keeps replaying it in heaven. The same God who smiled at your one act is the same God who stamped your record with one word: paid. Not pending, not under review, not we'll see if you earn it back. Paid. Finished. Complete. Colossians 2:14 declares that he has cancelled the record of debt that stood against us with its legal demands. This he set aside, nailing it to the cross. Your debt was nailed to that cross 2,000 years ago. Why are you still trying to make payments on a bill Jesus already settled? Here's what I need you to understand, beloved. Tonight is not just about God forgiving you. You already have that. What we're dealing with right now is something deeper, something that's been choking the life out of your latter years. Tonight is about you stepping down from that judge's seat. Because as long as you're sitting up there in that courtroom, condemning yourself, rehearsing your failures, replaying your worst moments, you will never walk in the authority God has given you. You will never believe that your prayers matter. You will never accept that your one act of faith was significant. You will spend your remaining years disqualifying yourself from the very destiny heaven has been preparing you for. And I'm telling you right now, that ends tonight. God is not asking you to earn his forgiveness. He's asking you to receive it. He's not waiting for you to prove you're worthy. He's waiting for you to believe what he's already declared over you. So here's what I want you to do. If you can, I want you to open your hands right now. Physically open them. Like you're dropping something heavy that you've been carrying for too long. And I want you to say these words out loud. Don't just think them. Speak them. Let your own ears hear what heaven has been declaring over you all along. Lord, I step down. I forgive myself because you already have. Say it again. Let it sink deeper. Lord, I step down. I forgive myself because you already have. One more time. Let the weight fall. Lord, I step down. I forgive myself because you already have. Do you feel that? That's not weakness. That's surrender. That's you finally agreeing with what God said about you instead of what guilt has been whispering. You are not the judge of a case God already closed. If this hit you, if something just broke loose in your chest, I need you to type 3 words in the comments right now. I step down. You're not bragging. You're not performing. You're agreeing with God. You're declaring that you will no longer sit in a seat that was never meant for you. Type it, I step down. Because here's what happens next. Once you step down from that judge's bench, once you stop condemning yourself, once you receive the forgiveness that's already yours, you're going to discover something that will change everything about how you see your remaining years. You're going to realize that God didn't just forgive that one act. He's been using it this whole time. You know what breaks my heart? It's how you introduce yourself. When someone asks who you are, you say things like, "Oh, I'm just the widow in 4C," or "I'm the retired nurse who can't work anymore," or "I'm the grandfather nobody visits." You've gotten so used to defining yourself by what you've lost, by what you can't do anymore, by how the world has labeled you in your declining years. But listen to me carefully, chosen one. That's not how heaven introduces you. Down here on earth, people describe you by your condition. They call you the cancer survivor, the diabetic, the one whose husband left, the lady with the walker, the old man on the corner. They reduce your entire existence to a medical chart, a social security number, an apartment designation. But in heaven? Oh, beloved, in heaven your name is attached to your faith, not your condition. Let me paint you a picture that's going to shake you to your core. Imagine right now, at this very moment, an angel walks past the throne room of God. And this angel, who's witnessed the creation of galaxies, who's seen empires rise and fall, this angel pauses and asks the Almighty, "Father, who is that soul down there? The one in the small apartment in Brooklyn? The one sitting alone tonight?" And do you know what God says? He doesn't say, "Oh, that's the 78-year-old with arthritis." He doesn't say, "That's the widowed pensioner." God leans forward on his throne and says with a smile that lights up eternity, "That's the one who whispered, 'I trust you,' when their heart was shattered into 1,000 pieces. That's the one who raised 3 children alone and still believed I was good. That's the one who forgave the unforgivable. That's the one act that made me smile for years." Your name in heaven isn't connected to your pain, it's connected to your perseverance. You see, Revelation 2:17 tells us something extraordinary. "To the one who is victorious, I will give some of the hidden manna. I will also give that person a white stone with a new name written on it, known only to the one who receives it." A new name. Not the name this world gave you, not the labels society stuck on you. A new name that captures the essence of who you really are, who you've always been in the eyes of the Almighty. But here's what destroys me. Here's what keeps me up at night, praying for people just like you. You walk around every single day believing the earthly version of your story. You believe the doctor's report more than heaven's record. You believe the bank statement more than God's ledger. You believe the mirror more than the master. You look in that mirror and see wrinkles, see age spots, see a body that's failing you. But God looks at you and sees a name that makes hell tremble. Let me tell you something that's going to sound impossible, but I need you to hear it. When demons gather in their councils of darkness, when they strategize about who to attack and who to leave alone, your name comes up. Not because you're weak, because you're dangerous. They know what heaven knows, that the one act you did in secret, that moment of faith when nobody was watching, it shifted something in the spiritual realm. You don't realize how much that one act changed what your name means in the courts of eternity. Think about this. Peter was a denier, a coward who cursed and swore he never knew Jesus. But that's not how he's introduced in heaven. He's Peter the Rock, the one who walked on water, the one who preached at Pentecost. Paul was a murderer, a terrorist who dragged Christians from their homes. But heaven doesn't call him Saul the persecutor. He's Paul the Apostle, the one who wrote half the New Testament, the one who turned the world upside down. David was an adulterer and a murderer who got a man killed to steal his wife. But God calls him a man after my own heart. You're not defined by your worst moment. You're defined by your most faithful one. And that night, that moment when you made the choice nobody saw, that's what's written next to your name in heaven's archives. That's what the angels whisper when they speak of you. That's what makes God smile every single time your name is mentioned. You're not forgotten. You're remembered. You're not finished. You're an ongoing testimony. You're not past your prime. You're entering your most powerful season. You're not just surviving. You're actively rewriting what it means to have faith in the final chapter. The enemy wants you to believe you're invisible, that at 70, 80, 90 years old you don't matter anymore, that your prayers are just the ramblings of a confused senior citizen, that your faith is just nostalgia for younger days. But I'm here to tell you that's a lie straight from the pit of hell. Your name carries weight in the spiritual realm that you cannot comprehend. When you pray, heaven mobilizes. When you worship, demons flee. When you speak blessing, it alters the atmosphere. Not because of your age, because of your authority. Authority earned through decades of faithfulness that the young ones haven't accumulated yet. You see yourself as weak. God sees you as a weapon. Here's what I need you to do right now. I don't care if you're alone in your living room or sitting in a nursing home or lying in a hospital bed. I need you to whisper your own name. Say it out loud, and then say these words: my name is known in heaven. Say it again: my name is known in heaven. If you can feel the weight of that truth settling on your shoulders like a mantle, if something in your spirit is confirming that you are not who this world says you are, type it in the comments right now. Heaven knows my name. Because, beloved, you're about to discover something that will change everything. You think that one act you did in secret was small. You think it didn't matter because nobody applauded, nobody noticed, nobody celebrated. But what if I told you that one act is still rippling through eternity? What if I told you God has been multiplying it in ways you never imagined? Beloved chosen one, as we come to the end of this sacred moment together, I need you to remember 3 eternal truths that will anchor your soul. First, that one act you thought nobody saw, heaven hasn't stopped replaying it. God smiled, and that smile echoes through eternity every single time your name is mentioned in the courts of glory. Second, your name in heaven is not attached to your pain, your age, or your limitations. It's attached to your faith, your perseverance, your secret surrender that shifted the spiritual realm. And third, your later years are not a downgrade, they're a divine promotion. You carry authority that can only be earned through decades of faithfulness, and hell knows it. But I need you to understand something deeper than knowledge. You are not walking this path alone. The God who saw that moment in the hospital chapel, who witnessed your silent sacrifice, who smiled at your secret obedience, He is still working in your life right now. He hasn't forgotten you. He hasn't moved on. He's been orchestrating everything for this very season. And beyond God's presence, you have us, this community, thousands of souls who understand your journey because they're walking it too. We see you. We believe in you. We will pray with you. So, let me ask you this. Now that you know how heaven talks about your name, how will you talk about yourself tomorrow morning when you wake up? Before I release you, join me in this prayer. Place your hand on your heart and let me speak over your life. Heavenly Father, I place my hand on the shoulder of every precious soul hearing these words. You know their names, not the names this world gave them, but the names written in your book before time began. You know the act that made you smile, the moment they thought was small, but you counted as sacred. God, I pray that you would breathe fresh life into their weary bones tonight. Where they feel forgotten, remind them they are remembered. Where they feel finished, show them they are just beginning their most powerful chapter. Where they see wrinkles and weakness, let them see the crown and authority you've placed upon them. Open doors that no man can shut. Provide for needs they haven't even spoken. Heal bodies that doctors have given up on. Restore relationships that seem beyond repair. And most of all, Father, let them feel your smile, the same smile you gave when they made that choice in secret. Surround them with your presence tonight. Let them sleep in peace, knowing their name is known in heaven, respected in hell, and cherished by the one who created them. In Jesus' mighty name, Amen. Now, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share what God spoke to your heart today. What was that one act He brought to your memory? Ask us to pray for specific areas of your life. This community is here for you. And please, share this message with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who feels invisible, forgotten, or past their purpose. Remind them they are not alone. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell. Every week, we're releasing messages specifically for God's chosen ones, for those who refuse to believe their best days are behind them. Thank you for staying until the very end. That tells me everything I need to know about your heart. You're ready, you're hungry, and heaven is responding. Until we meet again, walk in the authority of your name, the one heaven knows, the one hell fears, the one God smiles at. You are loved, you are chosen, and you are never, ever alone.